It's another Friday. Welcome, Lucy Gedaiga here, welcoming you once again to this channel. It is a channel where we talk all things money, all things women and money, and I continue to encourage you to subscribe. Now, last week we started a series, and the series was about the traps that financial scammers use to trap you and to hook you in. And we tackled 3 traps. And if you have not watched that video, please go back into this channel and watch that video so that you can begin to know the juicy story as we continue to unfold it today and for the few Fridays that will be coming on in the coming weeks. Now, last week we spoke about 3 traps. We spoke about that financial scammers will use exclusivity. Go back there and see what that was about. They will also use big English. I am sure this is where you probably had the word big English. They use big English. Go back there and see what that looks like. And then finally, they are hard to find. Those were the 3 hard to find. Their registration is hard to find. So those are the 3 ones that we tackled last week. So this week we are tackling the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th trap that financial scammers use. So let's dive in. Now, last week I was giving the story of, and by the way, I speak about these things because I have experienced them myself. I have been unlucky to have been engaged or hooked into a financial scam, and therefore I talk about these things so that to help people not get trapped into these to sort of be aware of what some of the traps that financial scammers use. Now, I told you about the story of what happened, and last week we left the story at the place where I had gone, to this office where I was given this information, and boom, I decided to put in 1 million, or is it the $10,000, because there was a high promise of a high interest that was promised, a very lucrative interest that was promised. It was about 37% every 30 days. I mean, I looked at myself and I saw a millionaire in the making. So I put in the 1 million. It was actually just the saving that I had, the amount of money that I had left after my failed business in the mining industry, in the mining sector. So with this 1 million that was put in this thing, it was called quantum fund, where investors were being pulled into this one fund that we were going to be getting some very lucrative interests. So I put in the money and I started counting the millions that would be there. Then we are talking about the 4th, 5th, and 6th trap. Now, the 4th trap that financial scammers use is that they operate in tight teams. So their team, they have this inner circle team, which they sort of know what information to tell you, so that it looks like the information that you're getting from the inner circle team members is the same. So they have sort of it's like they have gone to some training school, for them to be able to, whatever they tell you, whatever you hear from Peter, whatever you hear from Mary, whatever you'll hear from Esther, whatever you hear from that team, they have that tight team that they train very well, and they will speak the same language. So they have that team that is very well trained. So this is what happened for me. And how do I know this? Because when I put in this $10,000, or is it the 1 million Kenya shillings, into this investment and I call it the investment scheme, I was like, you begin to count millions. You begin to now think, my goodness, I should even resign from this job, because anyway, I am counting, I'm going to be a millionaire, a working millionaire. So I started feeling the urge to put in more money, because you want the basket to grow, So from thinking about how I would get about 100 million in 1 year, based on the interest that was promised, and based on the amount of money that I had put into that fund, I was like, supposing I put in another 3 million, what would happen? So I started making the calculations, and I was like, this would actually take me to 500 million. So I did one mathematics, one carry one, and I was like, where can I get 3 million? Of course, where do you get 3 million at a go? You know, I mean, unless you have sold something or something, or I mean, unless you're really doing big business that is generating, that amount of money, So I was like, what do I do? Borrow. So I went knocking to my bank. I borrowed 3 million Kenya shillings, put in there. And I think I had borrowed some other money anyway, but in total, I put in another 4 million. But before I could put in the 4 million so that it became like a total of 5 million, before I could put in the 4 million, first of all, what happened is that I was like, I need to first check. I need to ask these guys to tell me who else is investing there. That was such a foolish question. Who else is investing? I mean, did I expect that they were going to give me people genuine people? Certainly not. So I naively, and that's why I'm saying stay alert. That's why so naively I asked who else? Can you tell me who else is investing here so that I can ask them a few more questions? Of course, I was given a gentleman. And I was given the contacts of a gentleman, right? And now the contacts of this gentleman that I was given, of course, is part of that team, part of the inner team. They operating in a team. That's the fourth trap rather. They operate in a team. So I was given this one of their team members, not a team member, an investor who, of course, investor, and I'm calling them investor in quotes, whoever was said to be an investor, who had, supposedly put in money in that fund. So I was going to ask him questions so that then I can sort of find out more information. And boom, I asked him. And so I met with him. My goodness, boy. When I met with this guy, I asked him about, these questions. Is it a fund that I can trust? How much have you put in money? And he said he's been in the fund for 1 year. Lie, 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 lie. He wasn't there for 1 year, but anyway, he was part of the inner circle that had been, they are sort of positioned to tell you. They are positioned to tell you whether whether the investment is working or not. Anyway, and it is not all true for all. I mean, really, but for scammers, that is a game that they employ. So when I asked this gentleman, and he gave me information, and I sort of just felt confident. So with my confidence, I ran to my bank, applied for a 3 million loan facility, took the 3 million loan facility, and boom, put it into this fund that ended up being a scam. Anyway, so that is the fourth thing that they do. They operate in teams, and they will obviously sort of, a very inner circle protected team. The fifth trap is what they call the guy behind everything. The super guy. The super guy behind the scheme is always playing hard to get. He's always rare, playing hard to get. So the big guy, the guy who is really, who is like said to be the most knowledgeable fellow, the most like the high and mighty of this thing, is always very rare to find. He plays rare to find, and that's a game that was actually also played on me, because I remember when I went to that office, because I found, I think, I met three of the directors. There were four directors. So I met three of the directors, and of course, I told you in my last video how they had a big screen. Of course, they started, showing me things that were happening on the screen. I didn't understand what it was. But anyway, there were three. Then there was the super guy, the super director, who is never available, who is very, very busy. That's a trap that they use, so that there is someone who acts. I mean, and by the way, in this case, what I actually later got to understand, because I also got involved in the same thing anyway thereafter, this super guy was also sort of, he had also hooked up these people, these other directors, and they also did not know that they were part of the scam. They didn't know that it was a scam. So for them, they were marketing a genuine business according to them. So anyway, this super guy is always rare and hard to find. And that's what happened even in my case. So anyway, when I met this other gentleman who was telling me about how good the business is, how he has invested for 1 year, turns out that guy was actually a friend of the super guy. And so when I met him, and I remember, he sort of asked me, and by the way, what do you do? And by the way, the sixth trap is that they listen very keenly to what you're saying, because they must use your words to trap you and to hook you. That's the sixth trap. Anyway, so this guy was listening, and I was telling him how I have been, doing mining in Kakamega, and how mining wasn't doing well. And he asked me, why do you need to mine? I mean, why do you need to dig holes to mine? You can actually just do, bullions. I was like, what is bullions? I didn't even understand what the bullions were. But anyway, he said, by the way, the director, the name of the director, he was called George. And because anyway, I have written about him and I have talked about him in other circles. So he said George is, George has a lot of knowledge on not just the things that he's doing at Quantum, but also he has a lot of knowledge on, on the gold business, the bullions. Of course, I got hooked. I got interested. And so those are the fourth, fifth, and sixth traps that I wanted to tackle in this video. Number 1, number 4. Now let me put them in order from number 1 to 6, so that in the next video we are going to be talking about the rest of the traps. Trap number 1: they live in very high-end, very exclusive places. That's where their position, their offices are. They are not in dingy places because they have to make you believe that the business is doing well. Number 2, they speak big English. You can't understand what they are saying. Anyway, it looks like it's quite complex to make you feel like this is the mother of all things. Number 3, they're very difficult to, in terms of their registration, it's very difficult to find their registration because it's never registered in the local country. Like for example, if you're Kenyan, hardly will it be registered in Kenya. Most cases, it will be registered in a foreign country, in some island. When you hear Ireland, my friend, hey, stay alert. Then the other thing I said is that the fourth thing is that they sort of operate in some teams. There's some kind of a tight team that works together, which gives information, and it's the same information that is given. Number 5, the main bazoo. The main guy is hard to find. I mean, plays hard to find, plays rare. Then, of course, the other thing is that they listen very keenly to what you're saying. So as you go opening your mouth and giving stories, they will be listening. And I'll tell you, by the way, because eventually I managed to finally get to meet the super guy, the guy behind the big thing. I managed to just find the information, get the number, call him, and we set up a meeting. And by the way, we met at Ole Sereni. They don't like meeting in small little hotels. They have to meet you in some big hotels because it's all a make-believe. Things are doing well, things are good. So it's got to be in some exclusive big hotels. And that's what happened to me. And I remember we were having lunch overlooking the park. And by the way, I paid for that lunch for 10,000 shillings out. Oh my goodness me. Hey. Anyway, so when we were having a conversation with this super guy, the guy behind the thing, when we were having a conversation, he was, of course, listening keenly. And by the way, he had goggles that were, he was wearing goggles throughout this time. I mean, he never at any one time removed his goggles. And I don't know why that didn't sort of arouse my interest. I mean, I was just thinking that anyway, because we are eating lunch overlooking the park, it's probably the reason why he's putting his goggles so that he can see the animals better. But anyway, he listened to everything that I had to say, and everything that I had to say in that meeting is what he actually used to keep me engaged. And before I knew it, I was in some thick, hot soup. And as we continue with this series, I'll be telling you more about what happened thereafter and how hard this thing became. But the 6 trips and the 6 traps, the 6 traps. And in the next video, we'll be talking about now the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. We are tackling them in threes. Every video in this series, we talk about 3 traps. So I want to encourage you to keep it here. Every Friday we are together, and I encourage you to sort of to subscribe to this channel. And I tell you what, my experience and the experience I went through, in terms of losing money and just doing things that were really not good for my financial planning, it is the reason I have this channel. It is the reason I speak to you. And I love to speak to people in employment, especially women, because we can be so gullible. so that you never ever get to be trapped in these things and get to be hooked in these things and lose money. For me, I got trapped, I got hooked and lost money in millions. And it's never easy. It's difficult to recover money that you have lost. Of course, you can still make new money. You can still, build business, but money that is lost, my friend, it is lost and time is lost. So keep it here. Let's continue subscribing. And I wish you a lovely day, a lovely night, a lovely morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much.